Welcome to Lakshman Biology. We are discussing about deviations of Mendel laws. There are many characters or many genes which will not follow the Mendel law or Mendel laws of inheritance. First example for the deviations of Mendel laws is the incomplete dominance that already we have seen. Second example, codominance that also we have seen with the examples. Third example for deviation from Mendel law is lethal genes. Lethal genes also not follow the Mendel laws, that is law of dominance, law of segregation, law of independent assortment. Those laws not followed by the few genes. Example for that is lethal gene also. Okay, what is the lethal genes? Lethal genes are nothing but genes that cause death. Lethal genes are the genes which leads to death of the organism. If you see the genes, until now what we have seen, genes are responsible for the development of phenotypic characters. One gene is responsible for the maintenance of plant height, one gene is responsible for the maintenance of seed shape, one gene is responsible for the maintenance of seed color. Those are characters. Each gene is maintain the its specific phenotypic character. But if you see the genes not only influence the phenotypic characters but also affect the viability. Some genes also affect the viability. Viability means is the organism want to die or is organism want to survive. That is also decided by few types of genes. Those genes only called as lethal genes. Here, if you see the normal genes which are present in the organism, those not cause the death. When the gene is becoming to lethal, when the gene is mutated. When the gene is mutated, that is become into lethal. Okay, lethal genes leads to the death of organism. If you see the lethal genes which leads to death of organism are divided into two types, recessive lethality and second one is dominant lethality. First, see lethal genes. Lethal genes are two types, recessive lethality, dominant lethality. If you observe the recessive lethality, two mutated genes are here, alleles we can say. Two mutated alleles require for death of organism. Here, example, if you see the organism contain two alleles, it may be dominant or it may be recessive. Example, Y, dominant allele, small y, recessive allele, capital Y, dominant, heterozygous dominant. See these three genotypes we can observe in the organism. In case if the two alleles are mutated, see here I am going to change the color of mutated allele. Small y mutated, another small y also mutated. If two alleles are mutated, then the mutated homozygous genotype leads to death of organism. That cannot survive. If two mutated in recessive lethality, two mutated alleles are required for death of organism. Then if the organism contain one mutated allele, one normal allele, this is the mutated allele and another one allele is normal, which not leads to the death. In recessive lethality, if one normal allele is present also, the person will survive. That is the recessive lethality. Example for the recessive lethality is my skin color. Again, we will discuss separately about these examples. My skin color, that is one example for recessive lethality. Another example for the recessive lethality is achondroplasia. About achondroplasia also we will see separately. My skin color, the my skin color producing gene and achondroplasia, my skin color inheritance and achondroplasia inheritance, both are example for recessive lethality. In both, why these are recessive lethality, belongs to recessive lethality, because in both diseases two mutated alleles are required for death of organism. Next, dominant lethality. In dominant lethality, what we can observe in both heterozygous condition, homozygous condition, the organism will die. Example here, same capital Y, small y, capital Y, small y. These three genotypes we can observe in the organism. In case if organism contain two mutated allele, organism die. If organism contain one mutated allele also, organism die in both conditions. If organism contain one mutated allele, it will be die. If organism contain two mutated allele also, it will be die. Hence, we can say that the lethality we can observe both in both homozygous condition and heterozygous condition. Both organism will die. Which will survive? Which contain two normal alleles, those will survive. If organism contain one mutated allele also, which leads to death. Hence, in both heterozygous condition and homozygous condition, organism will die. Example for the dominant lethality is Huntington disease. About Huntington disease also, we will discuss separately. That is about the lethal genes. Once again, if you see, lethal genes means genes which cause death of organism. The lethal genes are divided into two types, recessive and dominant. Here, how the genes are becoming to lethal, that is because of mutation. Normal genes will not cause death. The mutated alleles or mutated genes are responsible for the death. If you see the lethal genes, which are two types, recessive lethality, dominant lethality. In recessive lethality, the two mutated alleles are required for death of organism. Example for recessive lethality, my skin color and achondroplasia. Dominant lethality, even one single mutated allele also leads to death of organism. Example for dominant lethality is Huntington disease. Thank you. In next class, one by one, we will see these examples separately we will discuss.